On today's Grounded How to Survive series, how to get some of the rotten weapons that can do really well in the early stages, as well as taking you through the old anthill and explaining about upgrading weapons and armors. Check out the previous guide if you're still fairly new to Grounded and want more tips, and let's go. So let's go and get that rotten larvae blade. It's situated across the fallen oak branch, and it's a pretty dangerous area if you take the wrong path. The best way is to find the tunnel entrance that goes underneath it. This way you're avoiding a whole bunch of mites. That unless you do want to get some more, as you're going to be crafting a bow and arrow pretty soon. And that's exactly what we'll be doing once we get the rotten larvae blade. And remember, it doesn't matter what order you do this stuff, and if you're days behind, you spent more time doing something, you do you. This isn't a guide, a try hard one for you to do everything I'm doing in exactly the same time. It's just to give you some pointers. Along the way in this tunnel, you will come across more chances to get grubs, but be warned, there's also an equal chance that you pick up a larvae. Remember, they make a much more kind of rubbly sound as they're walking. This time, this one got a bit squiffy and it managed to be stunned pretty easily. An axe will do a good job of taking it down. Now, these can be really dangerous, but I actually prefer fighting these than I do soldier ants. I'm mentioning soldier ants because from both of these creatures you get acid glands, and you're going to need them if you want to combine and make the ant armor, which is obviously also an objective by the end of this day. Knowing that I am going to craft the ant armor pretty soon, I decided to kill the ants that had come across my way at the same time. To the left of the entrance you should find a field station, and this will help you scan more items, and it's a good location for the map. And then we're going to go over to the rotten larvae blade, which isn't too far away. Be careful when you're scanning any new items that you might have inside this field station, as the mites will often come and surprise attack you from the branch above. Keeping the branch to the left, you'll see some containers of food on the right and maybe some apple cores or cookies, and you should find the leaf which has the rotten larvae blade underneath it. This is a particularly effective weapon for taking out ants. Ants often run away, and this time they won't be able to get too far because they'll be poisoned, and that's what this weapon does. Although it's pretty low actually attack damaging, the speed of it and that poison really makes it a decent weapon in the early days. Be warned though not to go killing too many bugs with your newfound weapons unless you've actually got a decent armor set, and making sure your armor's not about to break like what happened to me just here, making this fight much more difficult than it needed to be. Remember, if you're a fairly new player, you're not maybe expected to be a perfect blocker right now, and even the best players can sometimes mess it up, and I'm not a best player. But I absolutely love this weapon because, as you can see, as the ants run away, that's it, they're brown bread. Once you're back at your base camp or close to a field station, scan the rotten larvae blade and then you'll be able to make a much better one. Although I probably wouldn't bother. Not unless you've got an abundance of the resources, it's not worth it because there will still be a lot of better weapons we're going to come across. Rotten weapons don't deal as much damage as their normal counterparts, but I wouldn't discount them. You can still upgrade them even with elemental damages later on, and they still are pretty effective. As opposed to rotten arm sets, which you can't really do much more with. It's never really worth upgrading them past level 5. Go ahead and mix and match armor as well. Don't be too scared about losing that set bonus. For sure, some set bonuses are pretty OP and the only reason to really use that armor set, but in the early days, go with what you can so that at least all of your body is covered by some form of armor. So next we're looking for thistles, and we're going to make our arrows with these. Obviously you need to climb one of these plants, and there's a few of them scattered around, although you do have to go a little bit out of the way. Here's this one location, and it's pretty again close to the fallen branch. So you could have probably done this in one job if you weren't stupid like me and hadn't checked your armor set. Grab absolutely as many of these as your inventory can carry, the spikes, and then head back and we're going to start crafting our arrows and then get our bow. Previous video I told you guys, next to the small water area next to the mysterious machine, just above is where gnats will daily appear. So make sure you kill these, and if you get 2 pieces of their fluff, you'll then be able to go ahead and craft a bow. While you're here, you might as well get your first piece of clay with your shovel that you should have crafted. Now, clay didn't have too many uses until much later when you're able to craft foundations, but now there's a whole bunch of different things that you can make with it, especially cosmetic items like pots. And it's worth stocking up on clay now so that you're ready to make some decent smoothies, as it does help make some of the best ones. So we're back, craft a sprig bow, 4 pieces of gnat fuzz, 2 crude rope and 3 sprigs, and then grab the weevil shield, 4 pieces of raw weevil meat, 2 crude rope and 2 grub hide. You start thinking about using your hot pouches to start making your sets. Have one that's specifically for hunting and combat, so making sure you've got your bow and a quick weapon like a blade and maybe some healing items. And you can even leave 3 slots open for the B armor set that we're going to get, the rotten one. Bows are pretty weak in the early stages. You definitely want to get good at firing quickly or making sure that we upgrade the bow as soon as we can. A new addition to bows since Grounded's full release course is that you can now block with them, making it much more viable to be a proper range class. With the final piece of weevil meat needed, I can now go ahead and craft a shield and we're pretty much good to go in terms of combat. You should hopefully grab some of the slime stalks from the mite cave, or you might have seen them scattered around in other places. It's always handy to have some of these as long as you've got some fibres to make emergency torches. Now, how do we actually upgrade our weapons? Well, we're going to need the smithy station that you should have unlocked when you first went over to the oak tree, but we do need some more upgraded materials to actually do it. Now, what you could be doing right now is focusing on getting the rest of the ant armor needed, namely a chest piece, but you're going to need 2 of the acid sacs. So you have to either kill some larvae or kill some soldier ants. Once you've got the full set of armor, you'll be able to delve into the red anthill and pretty much get a whole ton of upgrade resources. If you're not at that stage yet though, or you've got another reason to be going over to the oak tree, then here's how we're going to clear out the abandoned anthill. Best thing about Grounded, no playthrough is going to be the same for every player. So I came across a stink bug, I somehow managed to get him stuck, which can sometimes happen, and I decided to, you know what, let's use some cheese and kill him now. It will take around 31 arrows to kill a stink bug. Not advised to take on these guys until you get a gas mask. 1 pounce with their toxic cloud is pretty much almost enough to kill you in the early stages, unless you've got some decent armor and you can run away. But I took full advantage of this because we're going to need to kill him to get pieces to make our tier 2 sets of tools. Definitely don't forget to scan every creature so you can find out their weaknesses, and they are weak to stabbing. So using your arrows or definitely lots of spears is a great way to kill them. You will need a ton of grub group, especially to make some decent smoothies. So whenever you're going past the oak tree, definitely dig up some. Again, this is a chance where you may come across a larvae as well. It's another opportunity to get the acid sacs that you need. I didn't come across any, so it's into the old anthill. Can't really miss it, it's just outside the oak tree. Bring at least 1 full torch or at least a couple of the mold stalks. As long as you don't interfere with any of the ants in here, you should be okay until you get to the bottom where you'll come across some of the soldier ones. Now there is another way into this anthill, in fact there's 2. Maybe even 3 if you count coming in from the pond. You're meant to break through the glass or you can see the gap when you're talking to Burgle, and that's an easier way to come through, to be honest. But either way, we're still going to go and get a bunch of resources now. So you'll be looking out for these. These are your marble shards, and this is what you're going to be using to upgrade your armor sets. You can find small pieces like this scattered around in some of these tunnels, and you may even find quartzite shards as well. This is what we're going to turn it into the plating that we need to go ahead and upgrade our top armors and weapons. So red soldier ants, as I said, I find these actually more challenging than larvae. To me, they've got much more health, but more importantly, they're more difficult to take on because they're often surrounded by other red ants, meaning they'll all aggro on you as soon as you attack one. Whereas as long as you have not gone right into a larvae nest or found some towards the wetlands, you should normally only come across one at a time. Basically, don't do this. Don't necessarily run down into the old anthill unless you've got a bit more experience and confident with combat. But it does have the one thing that we absolutely need, which is them acid glands, so make sure you've got plenty of space in inventory. Even with the extended inventory that we have now, it's still a bit of a pain in the butt, so make sure you're always using some storage back at your base. Just so happens I realised I had enough resources to craft my canteen, so I thought I might as well do that and use up some of these resources again. You can get an upgrade to the canteen where it'll be able to hold more and it'll be more durable. But honestly, I don't think it's necessarily worth it. You might as well save and just make sure you get the charcoal canteen later on. Anyhow, pick up the quartzite shards that you'll find scattered around in this first area that you've come into, and then look for the other small tunnel that should lead you up. Keep following this up and you'll come into another chamber. There will be some more brittle marble shards scattered along, and you'll come across 2 more soldier ants at least. Not the best time to go without your torch, but it's absolutely needed. This is why you need your shield, because otherwise these guys would absolutely wreck you. And it still was pretty tough me defeating them on this occasion. The granola bars are always handy, but also make sure again you've got plenty of cooked meat on you. The red tap patterns are pretty easy to spot, but when there's 2 of them doing it, if they're not in unison, it can be a bit more challenging to take them on. Don't be too scared to run away though and re-heal if you need to. Larvae Blade isn't the best weapon against them because they take not as much damage, but that poison really helped out there. In this chamber you'll find the bugged scab, as well as maybe have to deal with some more ants, and there should be a tier 2 sturdy marble piece. You won't be able to break this open just yet, but definitely remember it's here. So the next day I actually came through the laboratory and I went and discovered the old anthill, the way you kind of meant to go. You break through the glass, pick up the raw science, drop into the water and pick up the other 100 raw science. You can see a hole there, that's going to lead into the pond. It's very dangerous. You will need absolutely some decent diving gear to go through, and through there you'll be able to find some of the poison arrows. Not to mention a ton of milk mode upgrades, so it's not worth doing until we get the tier 2 tools needed. Anyhow, go through the water's edge and just as you get out you'll find some more shards. You'll come up the little ramp and the milk motor will be blocking the way. Down below is that second chamber where we know there is a tier 2 sturdy marble piece. So again, you need to come back here anyway to get the milk motor. But since I was doing this guide anyway and showing you the old anthill, I felt better to show you all in one go. Pick up some more shards as you're going up and it should snake around so that you'll be able to climb back into the laboratory in the oak tree. We've now got everything we need to make our full red and armor set ready to take on the anthill the next day. So back at base you should now be able to go ahead and make your upgrade station once you convert the shards into the actual plates and the red and arm guards. Now you can carry a huge amount of just the shards on their own, up to 99 I do believe, but when you convert them into the plates you can only carry 10 at a time until you get some more upgrades. So it's worth bearing in mind if you're transporting any, but I would still say it's worth making as many as you can and using them up. Don't worry about running out of them, you'll quickly get a recipe to craft your own and you'll find absolute tons of them to go ahead and upgrade whatever weapon or armor set that you really want. For new players, I'm going to explain it like it should be explained to a 4-year-old. There are 2 different ways to get the brittle plates that you need to upgrade armor and weapons. You'll find all the shards and you can convert them shards into brittle plating, job done. But eventually you could run out of them brittle shards everywhere. Later on, once you complete the black anthill, you'll unlock the recipe to craft your own brittle plating from bug parts and sap, namely larvae spikes. 1 of them and 1 sap equals 1 brittle whetstone. So use that to upgrade your weapons. And that same unlock hidden behind completing the black anthill will unlock the brittle plates. And you can then craft your own brittle plates using the grub hide and sap. So worth bearing in mind, you might want to try and keep a good resource of the larvae spikes as well as the grub hide. But in my experience, even when I've been using quite a lot on lots of different weapons and armor sets, I never really run out or had so many resources by the time I wanted some, it didn't really matter. It's the next tiers of the upgrade resources that you have to be a bit more careful, like them sturdy marble rock that I showed you. They can obviously be crafted into more upgrades, but the recipe to craft your own out of bug parts, you won't get that until much later in the game. But for now, go ahead and upgrade what you think will be used the most. I would go ahead and upgrade the rotten larvae blade for sure, and definitely the bow if you can. Quick scan your items, and as always making sure you're finishing the day by cooking some fresh meat. And that's the end of day 2. In the next episode we'll be focusing on getting the rotten B armor set, taking on the red anthill, and a first dip into the pond. As always, leave a like if you find it useful, check out the rest of my guides and gameplay for Grounded, and I'll see you ratbags later.